Come. Hello. Okay, mommy needs to talk to me. Okay. Hey there, everyone. I'm Celestia Rex, and welcome to this week's version of. Well, I don't really know what I'm calling this current line of chit chat series, but anyway. So, today I wanted to talk about something that has been on my mind and I've been thinking a lot about lately. It's essentially the fear of starting again. So to provide some context, I'm considering moving to another country, or rather immigrating, and previously I have already moved semi-migrated from one province in my country to a whole other province, and then restarted the whole process of making friends, finding a tribe or community, instilling myself within new hobbies, and just the whole process of networking and rediscovering oneself within a new environment. So why would I describe it almost as like a fear? So on the one hand, it is a good thing. I'm trying to go out to another country to do my master's degree and then ultimately to work there for a few years, potentially settle there, but I don't know. However, the flip side of it is, firstly, it's quite a big financial expense, so those kinds of decisions are always scary, especially as you get older and you come to realize that there is no one to save you. All your decisions, good, bad, whatever, you step in and you kind of have to step yourself out or make a relevant plan. So that is always scary. And especially with going it alone, there is the grand question of support networks. What is a support system? Like, who will you call in the event of an emergency? Who will you call when you feel like the world is ending? Who will you call when you have a car issue or when you're lost? Who will you call when your boss is being mean? These are all things that we have to think about. And obviously, your parents, your friends, your people you've really connected to in your new city are always a phone call away, so you can still talk to them. But in-person connection, in-person human contact is so important. And this was really highlighted to us during the height of the pandemic. Anyway, so that's a really important thing. Okay, so that was communicated during the height of the pandemic. And it just became clear just how important human contact is and how important it is for us to have someone around when, you feel like there is no one and you feel like you're just on your own in this little bubble of misery. So yeah, so those are some of the things, but I shall get into my notes now. Okay. So on the one hand, everybody goes in with this whole vision of having an eat, pray, love moment or trip or life experience. And I sometimes feel like that movie set us up for a bit for a disaster, because it created this whole expectation that you're just going to go out and meet these people and find this fantastic vibe. Also, of course, she found a life partner at the end of it. So I don't know. However, it was really beautiful just watching her have all these experiences within these short amount of time. But having too high of expectations or having too unrealistic of a time frame could also impact negatively. And as an economist or an economics student who finished her degree, obviously, it is something that I'm always brought back to the fact that losses are felt more than gains. It's a weird economic phenomenon, actually, in that people try harder to avoid loss than they do to acquire gains. So perhaps that's part of the reason why the fear of starting over again. There's always the risk that any endeavor you will do will fail. Different situations have greater or lesser risks. And moving to a new country is always something that has a proportion of failure or instability in there. And yeah, then you also have to consider the fact that as you get older, it becomes more difficult to make friends, partially because of the fact that everybody just does their own thing a lot of the time. And depending the type of city you go to, the vibes are different. Where I come from, which is Johannesburg, it's quite easy to make friends as an adult because you meet someone in like a week or so. You've been invited around to their house or to a mutual event or something related to them. I found in Cape Town that things move a lot slower. So, considering with that information in mind that different cities approach socializing differently, or in different ways, that can also impact on how quickly you settle into a new city. So that's something to think about. And settling in, many people, well, if you watch like different movies about going over there, it often seems like, oh, within a few months I'll be all settled, will know all the ways around, will know my daily route, will know my where to go and how to have a group of friends there and all that. But for some people it takes years. It took like 3.5, 4 years before Cape Town started feeling like home. And even then there are still some times where I don't really feel Cape Townian like. So I don't ever really know if anything's going to feel as home-like, but constantly moving does have the advantage of it gives you greater independence, and it does force you to become a lot more responsible, and you do get better at taking risks, well, more calculated risks. Something that comes along, well, considering, is like figuring out where you want to go, and then it's always like asking yourself, do you want to learn a new language? Do you want to experience new customs? What is more important to you, as in job opportunities, affordability, health system, crime rates, or do you just really want to immerse yourself in a culture that is completely different? And are you willing to accept a bit more of unique problems that might occur within a country that might be slightly less developed? There are many different things that you have to consider, and there are so many options, really, of where you can go, what you can do, how you can get there. Within today's day and age, we're kind of blessed with the immense amount of opportunities and scholarships and the somewhat positive view of migration or just experiences. So there's always ways, means about it. Unfortunately, they are somewhat geared to those who have the financial means. And it is a bit harder if you're like me and you're trying to get there either through scholarships or having to make a plan to work out how you're going to afford it. But there is always a way, to an extent. Well, I like to say that to myself. But still. And then finally, I think one of the main reasons that the fear comes out is that it almost feels, and I've experienced this as well within hobbies and such, it can really suck to feel as a beginner, as if you are a beginner when you're an adult. That whole beginner syndrome, or not knowing what to do, can feel much worse when you're an adult than when you're a child. When you're a child and you're learning something new, it's almost to be expected. But when you're an adult and you've got to witness other people or other adults doing things so naturally and you're struggling quite a bit, it can feel almost counterintuitive. Like, surely I should be honing my strengths rather than deep diving on this thing that I obviously have no clue what's going on. But then you have to remind yourself that everyone started out somewhere. And within this day and age where people are reinventing themselves in their careers every few years, it makes sense to be able to step away and to become a beginner and to try new things and to move to new places every few years. it seems to fit with the general line of how the world is progressing. And then my final point, and something that's been worrying me quite a bit, is this idea that if you don't go now, then when? Or rather, that the older you get, the more the opportunities shrink. And I really don't like that. I don't like the fact that age comes into things all the time. I don't like the fact that age is almost a barrier to life, or that people think you should have achieved or be willing to do certain things by a certain age. It's a lot of pressure and a lot of time-bound commitments. Yeah. And it just all leads into this giant fear of FOMO, because on the one hand, if you leave, then you might miss out on things over here. But if you don't go, then you're missing out on all the immense opportunities that are over there. So there are many things to consider when making a decision, and I find that the fear of starting over all over again as an adult can be quite large. However, putting down roots is something that can be delayed, and people tend to forget, well, I tend to forget at times, that life is not so much as a linear path, but more of a journey. And even if a step seems somewhat odd or difficult and even scary, it could be a great path. And failure is not as bad as it seems. Setbacks could in fact lead to great lessons along the line. Anyway, that's just my chit chat for today. Have a great week, and I will be seeing you next week. Bye.